In the midst of this bustling hall, where people were coming and going, the luxurious atmosphere was beyond description. Everyone attending the event was from prestigious backgrounds. Each person was impeccably dressed, promising a glamorous affair. Suddenly, the opening of a new series about the extravagant upper class pierced through the cheerful atmosphere. A scream, loud and piercing, shattered the festive ambience of the gathering. "I want a divorce," declared a voice, unmistakably cutting through the air, causing a commotion. The speaker used a tone that couldn't be more disdainful. This person was none other than Inovasia Okoto, the son of a noble duke, addressing someone named Oyef. In the context of Inovasia's words, Oyef seemed completely oblivious to the bizarre situation. She remained calm, adjusting her hair with an indifferent demeanor, asking casually, "What are you talking about?" She was the celestial beauty of the Duke's mansion, Osvia Inovasia, looking directly at Oyef with an impatient expression. As for the reason, she knew it best, and there was no need for further inquiry. What did he mean by wanting a divorce? Oyef calmly fixed her hair, giving an appearance of nonchalance, and asked again, "What do you mean by wanting a divorce?" She was the noble princess of the Duke's family, Osviainnovazi, looking straight at Oyef with a visibly impatient expression. Regarding the reason, she knew it best, and there was no need for further inquiry. Indeed, his words were like a shockwave, not only for Oyef, but also for the people behind him. Behind Oyef, these people began to gossip endlessly. Some even wove a story, imaginative and full of drama, bloodshed, betrayal, and a tragic end. People whispered, believing that, despite Oyef's unpleasant temperament, when the two families initially discussed the marriage, hadn't Inovasia readily agreed. Others added more spicy details, claiming that Oyef was known for ruthlessly tormenting any girl who got close to Inovasia. If anyone was suspected of having intentions towards her fiancé, their fate was sealed. Either they received a harsh scolding or immediately left the scene with their heads bowed. Another person chimed in criticizing, "It's truly too bitter. Little Miss Oyef may have a bad temperament, but initially, didn't the young master Inovasia agree to the engagement? Some even say that Miss Oyef, in her cruelty, has earned herself some bad karma." Oyef understood these details to some extent, perhaps due to excessive comments on the internet about her character. This might be a reason for the unexpected turn of events. She found herself in the role of the antagonist she despised the most. In fact, Oyef had read this particular novel, The Rose Empire's Rules, at least 10 times. She couldn't believe that one day she would become a character in the story. Whether it was due to her eating habits or some mystical force, she had ended up in the body of the detestable villainess, the one who would meet a tragic end, and to make matters worse, the main protagonist would be the one to end her life. The time of her transmigration had been too sudden, leaving Oyef unprepared. She didn't want to die again. At this moment, the solemn voice of the prince interrupted Oyef's inner thoughts, dispersing her reverie. He looked at her with a cold expression, and she was brought back to reality. "Do you have any objections to dissolving the engagement with Inovasia?" The question from the prince startled Oyef. Returning to reality, she looked at him innocently, seemingly unaware of the complexities. She inadvertently touched the prince's face. Being a true fangirl, seeing a handsome man like the prince, who possessed the charm described in the novel, made her eyes widen in awe. She hadn't expected the novel's depiction of the male lead to be this accurate. Handsome men in this novel were abundant, and she couldn't help but wonder if she had a chance as well. Her thoughts began to wander into a more hopeful and positive direction. All this happening right under the watchful eyes of the old lady. Suddenly, at this moment, a gentle voice reached Oyef, making her unable to help but be on guard, fearing that she might face a divorce. It must be very sad for her, right? Are the rumors about her all false? Oyef still doesn't know the owner of that voice is an AI. She looked around for a while, murmuring constantly in her heart, wondering who could see her sadness in her eyes. She's still happy, not finished yet, right? The person over there continued to display a saintly demeanor, showing pity for Oyef. Those rumors are really too exaggerated, making it hard for others to believe. Being a noble daughter with a good upbringing, how could she do cruel things and harm others? There must be a misunderstanding. As she spoke, she approached Oyef with a friendly and smiling face. This person was none other than the noble daughter, the Baroness Oyef of the White Rose Empire. While she hadn't finished her speech, the crowd behind her began to stir. Compared to Khuong, the young lady, Oyef was indeed too rude. How could there be a misunderstanding? Khuong, the noble daughter, is so virtuous already. Unfortunately, Oyef is not worthy of her trust. Oyef, sneering inwardly at Oyef, continued reading the novel. This character seems strange. Even though the character design is innocent and full of virtues, she talks like green tea. For example, in front of everyone, she appears to be helping Oyef, but in reality, she is mocking Oyef for her lack of education. According to the novel's plot, the next step for Oyef is to feel ashamed and angry, causing a conflict with Oyef, making her own image even more pathetic. Khuong, on the other hand, would gain more love from everyone, plus the prince, who already had a negative impression of Oyef, would dislike her even more. At this moment, the prince's impatient voice rang out, asking if Oyef disagreed with the divorce. Hearing this, Oyef was shocked. She realized that she had been ignoring the prince's question. So she took a deep breath, trying to be cautious, as her head was still under his sword. Then she bowed her head and spoke to the prince. "No, your Royal Highness, I have long wanted to cancel the engagement." As soon as she finished speaking, it also surprised the prince, who was already annoyed. He couldn't help but be amazed. Without looking at Oyef, he glanced at the Anobari faction and continued speaking. "Actually, I already have someone else in my heart. It's just that, due to the engagement, I couldn't say it. Now, thanks to Mr. Thantone for giving me the opportunity. I know that Mr. Thantone deliberately wanted to divorce Oyef in this situation to make her a laughingstock. Therefore, I also have to make this guy the focus, making everyone laugh at him." After that, she turned to the crowd, bowed apologetically, and said, "I'm sorry, everyone. My affairs have ruined the party, and it can't proceed normally. So, I'll leave now." Oyef wanted to leave quietly to end this, but it seemed that the green tea-like female lead had no intention of letting her go. She started to play tricks, suggesting that Oyef, the young lady, had someone in her heart already, and after cancelling the engagement, she would immediately get married. This statement was enough to stimulate Oyef to the point where she stood frozen. Thanks to Khuong's reminder, Oyef remembered that when Oyef and Inapperia annulled the engagement, her family would definitely arrange for someone else to marry her. In the novel, there are many handsome male characters who are infatuated. She has yet to meet them, so how could she marry so soon? Therefore, Oyef decided to find a rich man, a reason not to get married. On the other side, Khuong continued to urge her. "Mr. Thantone, you are excellent." However, the young lady Oyef is not moved at all. The person she admires truly makes me curious. She spoke in a very admiring tone, but Oyef did not give in either. She had found the secret to avoiding marriage. And so someone looked towards the prince and said, "That person is the prince, your Royal Highness." Of course, this statement shocked both the young and Khuong, and both asked in unison, "What?" Oyef knew that to avoid marriage, she could only embrace the prince's legs. That's it. So she firmly announced once again, "Actually, I secretly admire the prince. I apologize to everyone for my actions today, which were intended to create an uproar and drama at the party. Now, it seems that today's decision to attend the party is just right. A full drama. Even the prince had to step back to get a clearer look at OS. His face clearly showed discomfort. He had long considered OS as nothing, and this foolish woman now wanted to marry him. What is she talking about? The crowd became noisy again, and today's decision to attend the party was indeed correct. A drama-filled night. Even the prince had to step back a few steps to get a clearer view of OS. His expression showed his clear displeasure, as he had already regarded OS as worthless, and now this foolish woman was talking about wanting to marry him. The crowd became noisy again, and today's decision to attend the party was indeed correct. A drama-filled night. OS felt tired and sighed inwardly. Matchmaking is not easy. Either you end up getting married or face rumors and a bad reputation. She was struggling with the idea of going through this matchmaking process. Little did she know that someone was looking at her with eyes full of affection. Kalwa, who usually would get angry and throw tantrums whenever OS was criticized, now surprisingly remained calm and even dared to confess her feelings to the prince. However, OS, absorbed in her own thoughts, paid little attention to Kalwa's quick and small-minded calculations. While OS was contemplating her own predicament, Kalwa was thinking about how she could prevent her father from easily marrying her off to someone else. The more she thought about it, the happier she felt. She believed that with the prince's attention on her, her father wouldn't be able to force her into another marriage easily. Oil, on the other hand, clung to the dream of marrying the prince, laughing foolishly about it. However, OS was not concerned with Oil's petty thoughts. She was enjoying the scenery and, in her mind, making plans to befriend all the handsome male characters described in the novel. Suddenly, a male voice behind her called out, asking if OS, the young lady, could leave. OS, who had just admired the handsome male character in front of her, was now shocked to see a guy so good-looking. This guy seemed to be the knight mentioned in the novel, but his eyes did not show any affection for his master OS. As they walked out together, the guy suddenly kneeled down, confusing OS. Before she could say anything, he rolled on the ground like a cute puppy, looking at her with seemingly suggestive eyes. OS was bewildered, realizing that she had the bad habit of stepping on Jao's back to mount a horse, but she couldn't treat her adorable little wild wolf like that. Trying to help him up, OS was surprised when Jao coldly shrugged off her assistance, refusing her touch. Feeling rejected, OS reluctantly climbed onto the horse, while Jao stood up quietly. Boaz, who used to detest Jao to the point of wanting to get rid of him, now found herself feeling uncomfortable. She forgot how much she despised touching him, and now he seemed to hate it even more. As they rode off, Jao kept his distance, determined to clean off any traces of OS' touch. OS, on the other hand, realized that the character she liked in the novel was filled with hatred for her in this reality. She found herself in a perplexing situation where the character she adored seemed to be repulsed by her in real life. Reflecting on her experience, OS finally recognized the stark contrast between the character she loved in the novel and the person she was in this new world. Despite the confusing and challenging circumstances, OS decided to face a new life with determination and make the most of it. Despite sitting on the horse, OS couldn't calm her mind. The incident with Jao had left her in shock, and she was determined that one day he would realize how different they were. She believed that he would change his perspective on her, and the dislike he harbored would eventually fade away. As the carriage rolled back to the mansion, OS observed the elegant horse carriage that had swiftly moved through the dark night. Upon reaching home, the maid promptly informed her that the Duke wanted to meet her. Boaz knew that this meeting was unlikely to be a pleasant one, given the events of the evening. When she entered, The Duke immediately questioned Os about her actions at the banquet. Os remained calm, bowing respectfully to her father. However, within her, she was already strategizing on how to avoid punishment. The Duke's stern gaze intensified, and he demanded an explanation for Os's sudden desire for divorce and her attempt to woo the prince. Os, appearing to be tearful and distressed, fabricated a story about her worries over damaging the Duke's reputation and how she feared public humiliation. She painted a vivid picture of herself being shunned by society and how it would affect the family's prestige. All the while, she managed to squeeze out a few tears, adding to the dramatic effect. In response, the Duke, usually quick to anger, surprisingly softened. He stared at his daughter with a mix of suspicion and concern. Os, pretending to be overwhelmed with sorrow, further emphasized her commitment to the family's honor and how she would not bring shame upon them. As Os continued her act, the Duke, instead of scolding her, started praising her for her sudden change and dedication to the family's reputation. This unexpected turn left Os bewildered. The Duke, in a rare display of compassion, seemed to appreciate her newfound determination. Confused by her father's uncharacteristic behavior, Os wondered whether it was a flaw in the original storyline or if there was something wrong with herself. Despite her initial shock, she realized that her father, who had never shown her a favorable expression in the original narrative, was now treating her differently. The Duke's unexpected reaction made Os question whether the problem lay in the original script or if she had misjudged the character dynamics. While still trying to comprehend her father's unusual behavior, Os found herself in a perplexing situation where her expected punishment turned into unexpected approval. "Father, please don't arrange for me to meet anyone anymore. I think the crown prince in the palace must have sneezed about 10 times by now, seeing his beloved daughter so enamored with him." The Duke, who serves as a matchmaker, seems a bit displeased. His eyes squint, revealing his discomfort without any attempt to conceal it. But he is not a simple character. No one cares about these matters, and everything has been smoothed over. So, at this point, I just want to give a perfunctory answer to Father. "Father, I know it myself. I can feel the determination in Duke's actions." The Duke sighs and requests me to return to my room. 2 attendants are ready at the door to escort me, enough to understand the authority of this Duke's residence. The sound of my footsteps echoes, gradually fading away until there is no movement left. Before leaving, I can still overhear someone bringing a list of outstanding young men, suitable in age to Father. Surely they want to find another match for me. However, the Duke just smiles arrogantly, confident that the recent spectacle has completely extinguished any thoughts in Father's mind. No need for that. This list is no longer needed, he says with a tone resembling a kind father contemplating for his daughter. This surprises the attendants to the point where the sweat is pouring like a stream from them. Astonishingly, the great Duke, who has never laughed since his wife's passing, seems to be sighing in relief. On the other side, someone exhales lightly, as if finally getting rid of a heavy burden. After years of reading novels and comics, it's not in vain. Unexpectedly, relying on one's eloquence, one can truly avoid a catastrophe. However, I also find it a bit confusing because this nobleman's formula is even easier to talk to than in my thoughts. Moreover, he seems very different from the descriptions in the story. But then, I'd brush it off. It's best to consider my own situation first. After the confrontation with the Duke earlier, a new calamity is approaching. I stand in the vast labyrinth-like corridor, not knowing where I am. Unfortunately, the novel does not specify the location of the owner's room. Suddenly, I notice something extremely unusual. My gaze involuntarily shifts. In that room, loud and intense scolding is heard repeatedly. A sly mouse in the mouse hole, as I am quite cunning, managed to create a small commotion like this, unable to accomplish anything. Waiting for the young lady to return, She is determined to tear my clothes apart and use a whip on me. Inside that room is a middle-aged woman who appears quite authoritative, scolding vehemently. The young girl is kneeling on the ground, only able to endure silently. What makes me anxious is the young lady, the supposed eldest daughter. In the words of the woman, she seems to be the one. Could it be her, the eldest daughter, who is also the head maid? Seeing me enter, Yona, the maid, immediately greets respectfully. I glance at the woman with scrutiny. What are they doing? This maid just kneels in place, not daring to resist. The accusations from the head maid are about the youngest maid, Chu, being clumsy. I instructed her to bring tea and cakes to the master's room. Unexpectedly, she broke the master's favorite teapot, so now I have to discipline her. Seeing the young lady looking my way, Chu trembles for a long time before daring to speak the truth. It's not because of me that it broke. Today was the first day I received instructions to go to the young lady's room. After receiving the teapot from the head maid, I looked at it carefully, bit by bit. Up to this point, she is scared, bowing down to testify, her whole body trembling and swollen from the beating. I absolutely did not fall. It was the teapot that suddenly broke. Before breaking, I even noticed a crack on the teapot, as if Chu was intending to splash dirty water on herself. The head maid vehemently denies, but the girl's tone freezes. Then she tries to pull Chu up, but her raised arm hesitates before pulling back. Anyway, the image of the master in the eyes of everyone is not very favorable. Doing this seems a bit too much. I change my posture and sit down, smiling to ease the tension. Stand up, Chu. It's okay. Clean up, and it will be fine. I see your hand is burned. Quickly get some ointment. Indeed, her words were enough to make Chu's eyes widen. Looking at the supposedly cruel protagonist, she wonders how merely standing here and witnessing such a scene can be enlightening. Bois understands that Oyef is the culprit who broke the teapot, yet she shamelessly shifts the blame onto Chuo. With a few years of experience, selling herself to the upper class and being forced to increase her contribution diligently, OS sympathizes with Chuo. Bois glances towards Oyef, eyes narrowed in disapproval. She instructs Oyef to quickly clean up the mess. The head maid is astonished at Oves's intervention. She stammers and tries to address the young lady, but receives only a cold response. Does OS have any problems with the boss? Seeing the situation escalating to this point, even if Oyef is not satisfied, she has to obediently follow Oves's lead. Oyef, in a submissive posture, picks up the broken pieces meticulously. Oil feels a sense of accomplishment, unaware that Oyef has already given a loving glance to Chuo, instilling fear in the maid. As the sky darkens, OS finds herself in a warm and comfortable bed, tired from the day's events. Glancing out the window, she sighs, realizing that her life isn't as easy as she thought. The more she thinks about it, the more her head aches. Lost in her thoughts, OS's heavy eyes close, and she unintentionally slips into sleep. In her dream, she sees the protagonist's future. In the dream, she appears defeated, surrounded by people gossiping and criticizing. Weak and bowing down, everyone sees her as a malicious woman who dares to use magic to summon the serpent, Kalya. Some even consider her a demonic being, believing that she deserves to die. The dream then shifts to the moment when the main prince, wielding a sword, approaches. No matter how much she wants to explain, he doesn't listen, and there is no after. The memory fragment turns into pain and blood. Bois wakes up from the horrifying dream gasping. Her whole body feels constricted, and she is overwhelmed. She lies in bed, holding her head, feeling the pain. However, she notices that she has a lingering fear of the protagonist's fate. The thought of Kalya inviting her to a tea party disturbs her. Looking at the invitation on the beauty table, OS contemplates whether to go or not. If I don't go, it's better. But what if? She decides not to avoid it. The safest way to survive in this world is to change the protagonist's image in everyone's eyes. Determination fills her eyes. Despite being tired, OS gets up from bed, puts on soft cotton slippers, and opens the door. The servant outside is ready, handing her an invitation. This is an invitation from the Nalita house, sent to OS. Taking the invitation, OS silently evaluates the situation. If Kaliya is inviting her, it's probably not related to the main character, Kaliya. Why would she invite OS? Looking at the invitation lying quietly on the makeup table, OS contemplates. In the original work, after an unpleasant encounter with OS at the banquet, Kaliya did not calculate revenge, but invited the supporting character to a tea party at her house. She wanted to reconcile everything. However, it didn't go smoothly. When both the protagonist and the supporting character accidentally wore the same dress, their awkwardness made Kaliya even more resentful. With the protagonist's fiery temperament facing such a situation, she appeared even more irritating, causing a scene. OS, on the other hand, faced constant criticism and was considered troublesome. To avoid a similar tragic fate, OS must keep a distance from Kaliya. With this in mind, she opens the wardrobe and, after a brief hesitation, confidently takes out a set of clothes. There are various colorful outfits: green, red, purple, yellow, blue, and lilac. However, she wonders which outfit the protagonist wore in that situation. This makes her uncertain. In the end, a new plan forms in OS' mind. Closing the wardrobe with a loud noise, she decisively turns and leaves. Right at that moment, Oyef appears. Quickly switching to a cheerful tone, OS asks Oyef for help in preparing the carriage. She pretends she has to go on an urgent trip. Oyef quickly nods and calls her Miss with a respectful tone. However, the response she receives is even colder than before. Is there a problem with OS' attire? Seeing that everything is happening as expected, OS sighs inwardly. She knows she will attend the tea party, but first she needs to avoid a confrontation with Kaliya. Thinking that avoiding trouble is the most foolish way to preserve her life, OS smartly raises her hand, opening the wardrobe. Inside, there's a vivid assortment of SA outfits with bright colors and intricate patterns. Feeling satisfied with her choice, OS takes out a new set of clothes. The sky is beautiful today, but it's singing, and the wind whispers gently. At this moment, the horse carriage has arrived. Jao maintains his usual indifferent expression to greet her. Upon seeing the wounds on his face, OS unconsciously asks Jao what happened, but it seems that he's not interested in her concern. He barely manages to utter a few words about falling. However, OS isn't intellectually disabled. She observes carefully. These are wounds caused by a sword. How could it be from a fall? As she intends to reach out to inspect, Jao's face suddenly contorts strangely, as if he's suppressing strong emotions. Then, like a wave, his knife abruptly swipes OS's hand away, and he yells in her face, demanding her not to touch him. It's evident that Jao knows what has happened, and he perceives OS's inquiry as a mockery. In Jao's eyes, only anger and resentment remain. Seeing this, Oyef rushes forward to intervene, expressing her shock that someone would dare to harm the young lady. She calls for help. The unexpected situation catches OS off guard. Before she can react, Jao is being pulled away by other guards. He appears unruffled, but disdainfully remarks to OS that if she wants to punish him, she can do so directly without pretending to care. OS closes her eyes and orders the guards to release Jao. This shocks Oyef, who tries to interfere, but OS, without letting Oyef finish, coldly glares at the guards. The guards, misunderstanding, release JAO. OS, without approaching the scene, walks past him. Before turning away, she loudly advises him to take a few days off and not bother picking her up. JAO needs some rest. Seeing JAO leaving, Warane suggests calling a new mate, but OS straightforwardly refuses, saying that she only needs him. These words begin to stir emotions within JAO, creating a strange sensation even he can't comprehend. In the end, he chooses to believe that OS has thought of a new plan. Now, OS is unaware of the thoughts brewing inside JAO. The carriage is now entering the city center. OS, excited and curious, marvels at the vibrant commercial district in this novel world. She declares her intention to buy everything she sees, feeling invigorated. Unexpectedly, a sound of rapid footsteps echoes from afar. Suddenly, the thief vanishes along with her money. Panicking, OS yells in shock. The thief, seemingly unconcerned, disappears into the crowd. To make matters worse, she notices her stolen purse in the hands of the man who just passed her. In disbelief, she tries to understand how someone in this world could be so rude, bumping into her without apologizing. But when she looks down again, her purse is missing, and the thief is already gone. Distressed, OS cries out, realizing that all her money for the day was in that purse. The thief, indifferent to being discovered, even throws apples her way, causing chaos. OS is left bewildered, however, as the apples approach her. They stop mid-air. A mysterious man catches them, then throws one back into OS's hand. In a surprising turn of events, the apples are now in the possession of a stranger. Before OS can understand what's happening, the man leaves her with a casual remark, asking her to wait for a moment. Then, without explanation, he swiftly disappears into the crowd, chasing after the thief. Left standing there, OS is perplexed. She wonders how this world could have someone so impolite. Before she can comprehend the situation, the man returns and casually tosses her purse back to her. He then tells her to wait for a moment before chasing the thief once again. In just a moment, he has captured the thief under his feet. Calmly, he picks up the bag OS was considering her lifeline. Witnessing this, OS can't help but feel a mix of relief and gratitude. Now, her money and purse are safe again. Though she's puzzled by this man's actions, she doesn't have time to dwell on it. She is ready to explore this lively world, eager to absorb everything new. "Hey, are you all right?" The man didn't respond, but politely handed her the purse. OS wonders why this girl is looking at the guy with such admiration. It turns out it's because of his good looks. The girl speaks gently, praising OS for her beauty. OS quickly deduces that the girl is infatuated with the handsome guy and teases her about it. While they are distracted, the thief starts to recover. He quietly pulls out a star hidden in his clothes. OS notices something unusual, and her eyes widen in shock. She warns the handsome guy about the impending danger. However, he effortlessly disarms the thief, causing the weapon to fall to the ground. He then swiftly grabs the arm the thief was using and raises it, causing the thief to scream in pain. After dealing with the thief, feeling responsible for dropping the fruits, the guy reassures her and even hands her a few gold coins as compensation. The grateful girl, still in disbelief, gives the guy a basket of apples as a token of appreciation. Suddenly, the girl notices a nearby pastry shop, and she seizes the opportunity to invite the handsome guy for dessert. Boaz, without thinking, joins them in sharing a delightful moment at the pastry shop. As they leave the shop, each carrying a box of sweets, OS thanks the guy for the day. The guy humbly accepts her gratitude and expresses the hope of meeting her again. Oyef is elated and agrees without hesitation. Watching the guy walk away, Oyef is still in a daze. The girl comments on how polite and well-mannered he is. However, when the guy turns back, his demeanor changes and he seems more serious. He stands silently behind a wall, waiting for someone. Soon, a subordinate appears, and the guy instructs him to investigate something. The subordinate smirks and throws the basket of apples and the pastry box into the trash bin. Seeing her tokens of appreciation discarded, Oyef wonders how she would react if she found out. Meanwhile, the girl, Chuo, who was being mistreated by Yone, is finally released. Oyef intervenes, ordering Yone to stop. Though Yone seems displeased, she follows Oyef's command. Chuo, free from Yone's grasp, is pushed to the ground. Oyef instructs Yone to leave, and Chuo is thankful for Oyef's timely intervention. As Oyef returns to her room, she contemplates her outfit choice for the party, deliberately opting for a simple dress. She is confident that no other young lady would wear such an ordinary dress to the banquet. Suddenly, she hears Chuo calling for help. In the kitchen, Yone is berating Chuo, blaming her for the missing food. Yone's frustration is directed at Chuo, who takes the blame. Oyef arrives just in time to witness the chaos. Chuo is finally released when Oyef commands Yone to stop. Despite Yone's dissatisfaction, Chuo is relieved to be free. As Oyef walks away, she hears a plea from Chuo. Yone tries to justify herself, but Oyef doesn't seem interested in her excuses. Yone is left grumbling about being caught and humiliated. The story continues with Oyef heading to the banquet, contemplating the events of the day. At this point, there is no longer the noise caused by Yone. Now, only she and Chuo are left together. Oyef gently asks Chuo if she stole something. Tears start falling from Chuo's eyes, admitting with shame, "Yes, I did." Seeing Chuo bowing her head, Oyef requests her to lift it. When Oyef extends her hand, Chuo becomes more nervous, her expression filled with fear, unable to resist. Chuo closes her eyes, anticipating Oyef's punishment. Surprisingly, the warm hand is gently placed on Chuo's cheek, helping her wipe away the tears. Chuo looks up with suspicion at Oyef. She thought she would get scolded, but Oyef only asks if she's hungry. Chuo, crying even more, starts sharing her story. Her younger brother is sick, and all the money in the house has been used for his medicine. She stole food because she has no money left to buy rice. Chuo's sibling is her only family, and she can't bear to see him suffer. Hearing this, Oyef can't help but feel sympathy. It turns out that the boy is also living in the noble's residence, but because he is too young, he can't work yet. Oyef, out of compassion, doesn't scold Chuo, but offers her a piece of cake, suggesting they share it. Chuo is deeply moved and thanks Oyef. She leaves with tears, and Oyef hopes for a better future for Chuo and her brother. Yone, however, remains a thorn in Oyef's side. She confronts Oyef in her room, questioning why she let the thief go. Oyef responds sternly, reminding Yone that it wasn't her fault and advising her to be careful in the future. Yone changes her attitude, praising herself and assuring Oyef that she will keep everything quiet. Back at the Kalya family's mansion, the banquet is about to begin. Oyef, with a tired and haggard look, appears at the event. She scans the room and is surprised to see the prince arrive early. However, her attention is quickly drawn to the kind-hearted young man from the previous day, who seems to have noticed her as well. His gaze, however, freezes Oyef, making her momentarily motionless. As the prince swiftly leaves, Oyef wonders why she felt uneasy under his gaze. Suddenly, a group of well-dressed girls approaches, openly mocking OS. They comment on her appearance, suggesting she spent all her money on clothes. OS, feeling irritated, thinks about how she is no match for the rich prince and the benevolent young man. The girls continue to insult her, making fun of her in front of the prince. OS sighs, realizing how helpless she is against this group. Despite the insults, OS tries to remain composed. The girls, apart from Kaliya, continue to belittle her. Finally, they turn their attention to Oil, sitting nearby. They claim that, aside from Kaliya, no one is worthy of standing next to the prince, especially not Oil. While the prince appears to be leisurely sipping tea, he is, in fact, eagerly listening to the gossip. OS, at this point, feels exasperated with this flattering bunch and the entire situation. The noble event is turning into a challenging social ordeal. OS continues to scan the crowded banquet for the girl who might have a peanut allergy. She remembers the novel's description of the girl being thin, frail, and having some freckles. Despite her efforts, OS feels a strain on her eyes, and there is still no sign of the girl. She wonders if she can prevent the imminent tragedy. Meanwhile, Kaliya, being the host, is busy entertaining the guests. She shows off the exquisite dishes prepared by renowned pastry chefs and encourages everyone to taste and evaluate them. Renan, who has developed feelings for Kaliya due to her calm handling of the earlier emergency, continues to admire her. In the midst of the banquet, OS senses that something is amiss. Suddenly, she spots a girl who fits the description. Thin, fragile, and with a hint of freckles on her face, the girl seems to be struggling. OS rushes towards her, suspecting that she might be the one with a peanut allergy. Just as OS approaches, the girl collapses, struggling to breathe. OS quickly assesses the situation, realizing the severity of the allergic reaction. She calls for help and instructs someone to fetch a doctor immediately. Renan, observing OS's quick response, is further impressed by her competence. Kaliya, witnessing the emergency unfolding, begins to panic. She worries about the impact this incident might have on her reputation as the host. OS takes charge, guiding the people around to create space for the doctor. She remains composed and focused, ensuring that the necessary measures are taken to save the girl. The doctor arrives and administers the required treatment, stabilizing the girl's condition. OS, with a sense of relief, watches as the emergency is averted. Renan, witnessing OS's capable handling of the situation, is now convinced of her remarkable abilities. The incident shifts the atmosphere in the banquet. OS, despite being initially overshadowed by the noble guests, has now become the center of attention due to her decisive actions. The attention that Kaliya once enjoyed begins to shift towards OS, causing frustration for Kaliya. As the banquet continues, OS reflects on the unpredictability of events. She realizes that life in the aristocratic world is filled with challenges, and her ability to navigate through these situations is crucial. The prince, who was previously irritated by the commotion, now observes OS with newfound interest. Kaliya, with a forced smile, tries to divert the conversation with the prince, expressing gratitude for his presence at the dessert banquet. However, the tension in the air is palpable, and the prince seems uninterested in small talk. He glances over at OS, who is now engaged in a conversation with Anna. As the conversation unfolds, Anna expresses her gratitude towards OS for saving her life earlier. OS, maintaining her composed demeanor, downplays the incident, attributing it to coincidence. Anna, however, remains impressed and intrigued by OS's quick thinking and actions during the emergency. The prince, overhearing the conversation, finds himself more curious about OS. He wonders if there is something extraordinary about her, considering the attention she has been receiving. Despite the ongoing banquet and festivities, The prince's thoughts are fixated on Oyef, creating an air of mystery and anticipation. Meanwhile, Khuong tries to regain control of the situation by showcasing the delightful desserts. She insists that everyone continues to enjoy the festivities and delicacies. However, the unexpected turn of events has disrupted her carefully planned banquet, and Khuong cannot shake off the feeling of irritation. As the night progresses, the banquet continues with a mix of conversations, laughter, and the enjoyment of various desserts. Oyef remains under the prince's observation, and the unresolved tension between Khuong and the prince lingers in the background. Earlier, how did he feel just now? But now, what is the young deer thinking? He still pays attention to her. The young man is disheartened, thinking about Oyef. Then, he coldly turns away and leaves, not even bothering to look at Khuong. He leaves behind a chilly remark. There's nothing here. Khuong's face darkens with anger, her whole body swells with frustration. A mouth had already cursed Oyef earlier, blaming her for ruining her good fortune. What kind of sewer channel is this? Oyef, of all people, is the cause. Why does she keep sabotaging my good opportunities? During the meal at the Formula Mansion, even the authority had to be different from other households' meals. On the spacious table, countless dishes were meticulously arranged. Unable to contain himself, the Formula Master asked his daughter how her afternoon outing was. Being asked like that, someone immediately jumped in, trying to avoid the question. Reluctantly, she admitted that it was quite enjoyable, bowed her head to eat, trying to avoid further questions. But when she spoke, it had to be said. Despite being known as the famous chef's dessert, it wasn't as good as what she herself made. The sarcastic remarks of the characters were tiresome, making everyone drowsy and tired. In summary, it was an extremely unpleasant experience. Seeing her expression, the Formula Master suddenly mentioned a page in the newspaper, saying that the Imperial Prince was also attending Oyef. He expressed his hope that his daughter wouldn't marry the Imperial Prince. His words made Oyef, who was in the middle of eating, stop in surprise. She looked up at her father, puzzled. But the Imperial Prince is the heir to the throne. Isn't he highly suitable for the criteria of choosing a son-in-law? How can she confidently say such things? In principle, it is written that he always presents potential suitors to Oyef who have both wealth and power. So isn't the Imperial Prince a person with overwhelming influence? The Formula Master clasped his hands together slowly and said that valuing power is because he hopes to marry his daughter to a man who can ensure her life. However, he doesn't hope that the life of that person is too dangerous, as it will not bring happiness to his daughter. His words truly surprised Oyef. This was an emotional father-daughter moment, not a cold one. In principle, her father had never discussed this matter with her before. The seemingly severe father turned out to be someone who truly loves his daughter. Seeing her daughter silent, the Formula Master continued his monologue. That morning, news of a conflict emerged. Besides the conflict, the Emperor decided to send the Imperial Prince to suppress it. He knew how dangerous this mission was, as the Imperial Prince had to bear the responsibility for the entire country. To become the Prince Consort, her life would probably always be filled with worry and caution. The Formula Master hoped she would reconsider. It was hard for him as a father, as she was still busy with her duties. He advised her to eat peacefully. Saying this, the Formula Master quickly left, leaving Oyef sitting in contemplation. She knew right away. Last time, he had compromised on the matter of her liking the non-woven fabric. Why would he suddenly change his attitude? It turned out there was a conflict nearby. At this point, Oyef widened her eyes in shock. Hold on, there's a conflict nearby. It has come to this plot point. In reality, this time, the non-woven fabric failed miserably. The male supporting character placed a spy next to the Imperial Prince, revealing the battle plan to the enemy, leading to a disastrous defeat. The non-woven fabric not only suffered injuries, but also had their military authority partially revoked. Suddenly, a new plan began to unfold in Oyef's mind. If she could use this opportunity to help the non-woven fabric, then at some crucial moment in the future, couldn't she leverage this situation to request leniency for the non-woven fabric? Today is a good opportunity to obtain the immune card. And so Oyef's plan began. On the first day, she was full of vigor, writing a letter to directly discuss this matter with Renan. The young man was a bit surprised, thinking the letter was from the great Duke. Unexpectedly, as soon as the imperial prince heard that it was a letter from Miss Oyef, he immediately threw it away without any hesitation. On the second day, the plan continued. If this strategy doesn't work, she'll try another one. Oyef decided to directly approach him to talk about it. As soon as she saw the figure with the imperial prince, Oyef smiled brightly, waving her hand. But before she could say anything, the prince had a dark face, pulled the reins of his horse, and ran away, even making her hat fly away without a care. Another failure added to Oyef's frustration, reducing her confidence. Looking at her demeanor on the third day, it's probably quite disheartening. This time, she decided to give a gift to the imperial prince. In the box, there was also a note. She was sure he would be curious and come to find her once he saw it. As soon as she saw the silhouette of the non-woven fabric appearing, she quickly approached. But he treated her as if she were invisible, and the atmosphere that swept past Oyef could only be followed by saying, "Imperial Prince, please accept this gift." Unexpectedly, he responded dismissively, not caring. This caused her to slip, and the gift also fell to the ground, the red thread accompanying it. In this situation, Oyef could no longer hold back her frustration. Her face turned grey with anger. But at this moment, from a corner, laughter echoed. The owners of these laughs were the young noble ladies. They gleefully chatted, then began to weave a tragic tale of Oyef's misfortune. Oyef presented a gift to the imperial prince, but he rejected it. Afterward, rumors spread, twisting the story into Oyef wanting to marry the imperial prince but being rejected. There were even malicious rumors suggesting that Oyef had introduced herself as a bed warmer to the prince, but got bluntly refused. The person being falsely accused was sitting angrily, wanting to slam the table. Why did things turn out this way? She just wanted to create an opportunity, meaning to the imperial prince. Why, in the end, did the whole society spread rumors that she wanted to sleep with him? The most annoying thing for her was that the Dia non-festival was approaching. As she was feeling troubled, someone knocked on her room's door, adding to Oyef's frustration. The person entering was Oyef, who respectfully announced that the young miss was invited to the great Duke's study for a visit. In the Duke's study, the lights were always bright. Oyef quickly arrived, casting a curious glance at her father. The formula master, sitting nonchalantly, gestured for Oyef to sit down and then handed her a thick stack of paper. Additionally, he placed an even longer list in front of her. It turned out to be a list of eligible young men with sufficient qualifications. The formula master, being cautious, sought Oyef's help as there were plenty of outstanding men in the world who were more suitable than the imperial prince. There were still many choices for Oyef, looking at the pile of paper that was taller than her head. But she was somewhat envious. That was the legendary dating list. Seeing Oyef hesitating, her father encouraged her to give up on the imperial prince. A man like that wasn't worth lingering over. Hearing this, Oyef felt utterly humiliated. Even her father heard the crazy rumors. At this moment, Oyef wished she could put her pants on her head to save face. The formula master continued trying to persuade her, emphasizing that the man she liked was a loss. He reminded her not to forget her identity as the daughter of a duke. Her father would always be her support. Despite her embarrassment, Oyef tried to convince the formula master, stating that she sought the imperial prince for a very important matter. Hearing that the imperial prince was involved in the upcoming battle, she had some ideas she wanted to discuss with him. Instead of explaining to her father, she decided to show him the map she had prepared. While listening, the formula master nodded and shook his head, expressing satisfaction without hiding it. His face even showed a hint of pleasure. After finishing her presentation, Oyef looked toward her father with a mixture of hope and anxiety. However, her father's face suddenly became skeptical. All these thoughts came from her. Didn't she study these strategic books? Caught off guard, Oyef desperately searched for a reason. As she glanced at the chess set on the table, an idea flashed in her mind. She suddenly claimed that she had been playing chess recently and had done some small strategic studies. The formula master was very pleased, praising his daughter for her surprising recent behavior. His expressions and comments made Oyef feel both relieved and embarrassed. But when she explained the battle plan, the formula master's face showed doubt again. Were these thoughts her own? In an attempt to persuade her father, Oyef made a move suggesting that if her plan could persuade the Great Duke, it might touch the imperial prince's heart. Yet, her father's face now displayed suspicion. The persistent formula master stood up and declared that he would transfer her battle plan to the imperial prince immediately. The next day, Oyef received an invitation from the imperial prince. She was overjoyed, smiling widely as she read the letter. She knew that just by letting the non-woven fabric hear her battle plan, they would definitely propose a meeting. In the luxurious palace, everywhere was beautiful. The palace maids respectfully led her to a corner, announcing that the imperial prince would arrive in 10 days. Soon after, Oyef heard the sound of approaching footsteps. As the young ladies in waiting escorted her to a corner of the palace, they whispered that the imperial prince would come soon. In just a moment, Oyef heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Looking up, she revealed her beautiful appearance. Today, the young lady's attire is completely different, shedding the appearance of a poor girl. In the previous Kali banquet, the prince approached her and, without any preamble, asked if she had intentionally avoided him, sparking baseless rumors everywhere. Surprisingly, she remained calm and composed. It seemed like the prince was probing her with this question, and his eyes seemed fixated on her, eager to see her reaction. She gracefully turned to look at him, dispelling any unfounded rumors. She pointed out that the rumors about the prince spreading false information were unnecessary. She expressed that she had no reason to be angry, and if the prince wanted to meet her, it was her wish. Whether they met or not was at the discretion of His Highness. She acknowledged that she couldn't force him to meet her and wouldn't blame him for choosing not to. As she spoke, the young lady remained calm, smiling gently, surprising the prince. He expected her to react differently, perhaps irrationally. In the brisk wind, the prince inquired about the strategic battle plan she had proposed. He emphasized the consequences of failure, not only for her, but also for the entire noble house. The attendant prince looked at her with caution. However, she responded confidently, stating that her strategic plan coincidentally aligned with his ideas. She clarified that if he chose to use it, it should be for the sake of his conviction in the plan, not because of her. She argued that if the plan failed, it shouldn't be seen as the fault of the noble house, but rather the responsibility of the prince. To her surprise, the prince eventually withdrew his suspicion. She further recommended abandoning the use of this plan. Despite being a minor character, she asserted that the enemy might figure it out. Her serious tone and steel-like resolve impressed the prince. He finally dismantled the defensive posture. The prince couldn't help but acknowledge the similarity in their thoughts. Someone in the background sighed, realizing it was more than just a resemblance. To attract the prince's attention, she had initially suggested the strategic plan to her father, which was later leaked. Her insightful words changed the prince's perception of her. Now their interaction had an unexpected camaraderie. The attendants started reporting the situation to the prince. Learning about her strategic plan against the Knoll Empire, the prince's eyes sparkled with an unusual brightness. The prince complimented her on being an interesting aristocratic lady with strategic intelligence. Little did they know that, in the distance, a pair of eyes were watching them intently. It wasn't someone else but the blonde man who had captivated the young lady's attention. His warm exterior concealed a cold and calculating nature. He was ready to approach her just to investigate. As they laughed and joked, little did they realize the intensity in his gaze. The bodyguard nearby respectfully reported the situation to the attending deity. It was revealed that Oyef had proposed a strategic plan for a joint attack against the Knoll Empire with the prince. The attending deity, upon hearing this, showed an unusually bright gaze. "Oh, such a noble lady with strategic acumen," he remarked, preparing to deliver a classic line from romantic novels. "Truly an interesting girl," making it impossible not to pay attention. At the mansion of the count's family, Shi Yu brought his younger brother to express gratitude to Oyef. The young boy seemed quite timid, standing close to his sister, and later bowed deeply in respect, displaying remarkable obedience. Chu introduced his younger brother, thanking Oyef for her assistance, which had led to his complete recovery. Therefore, he brought in to express gratitude. Upon hearing this, a smile involuntarily tugged at the corners of Oyef's lips. She reached out and gently patted the boy's head, reassuring him that there was no need for formalities, and she was glad he had recovered. Moved by the situation, Chu couldn't help but shed tears. He expressed his gratitude to Oyef, acknowledging her as their savior. He assured her that if she had any requests, they would gladly fulfill them. At that moment, a perfect idea struck Oyef's mind. She gently took Chu's hand and sincerely asked if he would like to become her personal attendant. She explained that it would be an excellent opportunity for him to develop his own strength, and she couldn't afford to miss such an opportunity. Chu readily agreed without hesitation, his eyes gleaming with excitement. To him, it was a great honor. Someone nearby couldn't contain their joy, realizing that they could finally establish their own power. The situation had developed positively, and Oyef had managed to impress the prince as she desired. Although she only had one person in her own power, it was better than nothing. Time passed swiftly, and it was the day the prince set off. A few days earlier, Oyef had been cheerful and excited about building her own power. However, it seemed her power was so insignificant that even she felt powerless against it. Unexpectedly, her power became a staunch supporter of Kuk, the prince, and herself, all because of the rumor that she wanted to sleep with the D-Non, which led Chuo to believe she truly loved the prince and wanted to push their relationship forward. Chuo began chanting slogans proclaiming the prince's invincibility, and not just him, but other noble ladies also came to bid farewell to the prince. It was the day of Jion's departure, so Chuo had brought her out to witness the event. The prince still maintained his usual aloof demeanor, his eyes indifferent to the excessive enthusiasm of the noble ladies. To maintain the plot where the prince likes the D-Non, Oyef had no choice but to reluctantly accompany Chuo. The more she thought about it, the more she felt disheartened. Why should she waste her time here doing pointless things? Suddenly Chuo, filled with enthusiasm, approached her, urging her to wave her hand to catch the prince's attention. Against the overwhelming enthusiasm of Chuo, Oyef could only helplessly smile. In front of them, the noble ladies were still passionately shouting and cheering. Many of them even brought gifts, but none received the D-Non's acknowledgement. A beautiful and charming figure appeared among the crowd, calling out to the prince affectionately. It was Kally, who smiled shyly and offered a gift of mosquito repellent, urging the prince to take it. The prince, however, coldly brushed past Kally, rejecting her gift outright. This embarrassed Kali deeply as she watched the prince ignore her offering. This incident made Oyef realize that perhaps things weren't going according to the script she had in mind. She remembered that in the story, the D-non had accepted Kali's gift. Her efforts seemed to have been in vain, and the relationship between the main characters had been temporarily postponed. As she pondered, she caught the disdainful gaze of a noble lady nearby. She seemed to mock Oyef's apparent happiness. Did she think the prince would accept Kali's gift because of her? There was no point in dreaming. If it had been her gift, the prince might not have just rejected it, but even thrown it away. Unperturbed by the taunts, Oyef realized that she couldn't just stand by and watch the spectacle. She remembered the prince's warning, but now she had to figure out what to do. Khuong enthusiastically asked if she had a gift to offer. Before she could reply, he pushed her forward, leaving her no choice but to follow along reluctantly. Despite the festive atmosphere, Oyef couldn't help but feel exasperated. However, she found herself face to face with the prince. Both stood there, unsure of what to do. Meanwhile, the person forced to come along today had no gift to give. Prince looked down, his thoughts inscrutable. Nevertheless, faced with the situation, Oyef promptly produced a handkerchief and hesitated before speaking. "Do you need a handkerchief, Your Highness?" Her every move was captured by numerous cameras scattered around. Mockery ensued. "Oh my, she's giving him a handkerchief. And it's one she used herself. No box either." Kali, with her thick skin, chimed in, "Don't talk like that, Oyef. His Highness isn't lacking in these items." Speaking confidently, Kali proudly tried to encourage herself. His Highness, seemingly indifferent to the gossip, stared at Oyef. "Is this your handkerchief?" he asked. Then, gently extending his hand, he accepted it. Before the astonished gazes of the onlookers, each person incapable of believing the shocking news, Kali felt a pang of frustration. Despite her thorough preparation, her carefully chosen handkerchief couldn't match Oyef's worn one. His Highness took a step towards Oyef. In a soft voice, he said, "I'll help you break free. Treat it as settling a debt. Once I win and return, you must agree to something." He finished with a bold move, placing a kiss on her hand, a farewell gesture Oyef struggled to comprehend. As her mind tried to process the information, Khuong appeared to be the happiest person, enthusiastically commenting on the impending reciprocation of affection for the princess. Oyef, on the other hand, was left baffled and unsure how to react. With another week passing since the prince's departure, Oyef found herself in a corner, contemplating the perplexing situation. The statement he made that day continued to echo in her mind. Her confusion persisted, and beads of sweat formed, exacerbated by the growing headache. Unexpectedly, a peculiar sound drew her attention. It turned out to be Khuong's younger brother practicing swordplay with a simple wooden stick. Despite the makeshift equipment, he practiced earnestly. Observing the scene, Oyef couldn't help but chuckle. She called the boy over, tenderly patting his head. "Do you like swordplay?" Upon hearing her question, the boy nodded innocently. Under Oyef's hopeful gaze, she gently asked if he wanted to formally learn from a master. "We have someone quite suitable for that."